All right, welcome back, guys. This is going to be our Agni guide. This is a guide that I'm going to be doing a little bit of a series going through every god A to Z after I've played them in every single role in the game of Smite. If you're following my channel, you know I'm doing an A to Z every single role, which means I'm playing every single god and every single lane in Smite Conquest. I've already finished up with, I think, 4 or 5 gods. I'm on her right now. I should be finishing him up here in the next couple days, moving into Anubis. So I'm kind of catching up. I didn't plan on doing this before, but there's just been some, talk in the bottom of the comments from a few people in my channel where they wanted some commentary done on my videos, and I'm going to keep the main gameplay just strictly, a relaxing experience with music. But, I'm starting to mess around with intros in the beginning to explain the builds, just because a lot of people want to hear why I'm making the decisions I'm making when it comes to the builds. And kind of asked if I would put the full build in the beginning of the video. I don't really want to, put the full build in the beginning of the video, so I try to steer away from that. But I am explaining the full build in the beginning of the video, so I guess it kind of evens itself out. But anyway, we'll get into this. I know my Achilles video was a little bit long. I know it stretched a little over 30 minutes. I'm going to try to keep these videos somewhere sub 20 minutes, around 15 would be good, just so you can get in, kind of understand the god, where they belong, and don't have to sit for an entire 30-minute episode on what the god is, of just me just rambling on. So for Agni, it was a very interesting experience. Agni's pretty versatile. I feel like he's been pretty unpopular for most of his time in Smite, but he has his moments where he kind of makes his way onto the stage. So a lot of people tend to play him in like little spans of time. He'll just pop up and you'll see him a lot. But most of the people that main him, are few and far between. I'd say it's probably because his kit's a little interesting and he works really well if you know exactly how his kit works. But if you don't, he feels probably a little underpowered. But he's actually really good. We'll go into his abilities first, and then we'll kind of talk about where he belongs role-wise, based on after I played him, or at least this is my opinion based, but where I feel like he belongs best. And then after that, we'll kind of go into the builds that I try to stick to with Agni. So with Agni, his abilities are pretty simple, very dumpy kind of abilities. He kind of uses everything all at once in order to burst people down. He is a burst damage kind of mage, and his ultimate's a little bit different than most mages. But we'll start off with his passive. His passive is based on basic attacks. When you hit an enemy god, you get 2 stacks. You only have to hit them twice. This will get you to 4 stacks. If you're hitting anything else other than a god, you get 1 stack, so you have to hit off 4 basics in order to fill it. This works with your 2 and your ultimate. It causes a tick damage to appear above their head. Once you're fully built at full level, it's typically about 200 to 300 damage that ticks off over time. I think it's about a 3-second span. So again, that only activates with your second ability and or your ultimate. Your number 1 ability, which is Noxious Fumes, is a little circle ability that you drop on the ground that causes tick damage. It's not a lot of tick damage, so it's not like a main damaging ability, but it works really well with the rest of your abilities. Every single one of Agni's abilities can actually activate the Noxious Fumes, make it explode, and cause a stun. It's really good at locking people down and also causing a little bit more damage with your abilities. His 2 is pretty bursty. It's probably his most used damage ability. To be fair, his 3rd ability does more damage, but it's hard to get people to sit there and stand in it. We'll kind of go over his 3rd ability in just a second, but his 2nd is just a line attack out in front of you. It's a big wall of fire that goes out. It stays there for a little while, so you'll see one of his most common kit dumps is going to be the 2 into his stun is 1, which you can activate afterwards, and it's really good for leading people. So you can throw it out and then activate the 1 a little bit later, just to kind of get that stun off. It's a lot quicker than trying to drop the Noxious Fumes out. You give them time to kind of react to it. For his 3, it's a line dash. It's very quick, gives you a lot of movement, pretty fast, and an easy escape. You're immune to knockbacks while you're dashing as well, so it gives him a way of getting away. The line of fire that you leave behind you causes tick damage to anybody that walks through it. So if someone does walk through it or stands in it, they do take pretty good damage from it. If they stand in it, it's absurd damage, but most people are going to not stand in it unless they get stunned in it. But it's a good, towards the end, late game, maybe if you're getting really aggressive, you could use it as a damaging ability, but most of the time you're going to use it to get away. For his ultimate, it is a 3-burst ultimate you can use that comes back about 18 seconds per meteor. The meteors show up above your head. As you can see, I have a little halo. As I use one, it's a big line attack. It's pretty quick. It's a little slow compared to most ults, but it's quick enough to get off, especially if you use your stun first. And as you'll see, I only have 2 meteors above my head now, and as it charges back, I'll have the full 3, and you can dump all of them. Now, the reason why Agni is really good is because he is a burst god, so if you use his kit all together, he's going to do an absurd amount of damage. We'll drop someone like a Neath off here so we can kind of see. But if we get our full passive, and we're able to use off the entire kit on someone like a Neath, they're going to die instantly, of course. I don't have to use the whole kit. Now, this is a Neath bot too, so maybe, you know, I don't know how they kind of determine what, if they even determine if they have a build on them or not. But we'll bring in someone like a Ymir here just so we can see for sure kind of the full potential of the damage that we're putting off. It's still quite a bit, especially if he's full built. So as you can tell, that's kind of his main go-to. It's not hard to play Agni once you really understand him. I kind of, if you watch all of my role videos, the full 5, you'll see kind of from the first one to the last one, I get pretty proficient with Agni. I wasn't one of the people that mained Agni when I first started this. I've only gotten good with him just because of how many games I played to get the series going. But he's really fun to play. I think he's very interesting. Going into where he belongs, I feel like probably his least go-to role is going to be a tie between support and carry. I feel like he can play the roles. I don't feel like it's going to hurt your team too bad for him to be there. But it's definitely not as strong as the other roles. Let's say carry is probably the worst. I think he fits really well with Sol or Oleron, on par with them in the carry lane for a magical. The only thing is mages in general right now don't belong in the carry lane. SMITE has done, or Hi-Rez has done really good at trying to balance them out of the carry lane and make hunters a little bit more proficient in being there. They're going to do a lot more objective damage, which is why I feel like they don't belong there so much. If you pair up a hunter versus a mage when it comes to basic attacks, they're going to take down objectives a lot faster, your towers and your phoenixes. A little bit more so on Gold Fury and Fire Giant as well, but with Agni, it's a little negligible because he has his whole kit that he can dump off pretty quick onto an objective, especially his ultimate, so it's not too bad. But when comparing him to the mages that do get played in the carry lane, like Sol or Oleron, I feel like he does really well. I actually feel like he's on par with them, if not a little bit better, just because the way his passive works. He already pretty much built around his basics anyway, and then if you build a little bit of power and penetration towards the end of the build, it works out really well. So I think he can be played there. I just feel like, you know, it's probably better filled by a hunter, so that's why I put it towards the bottom. Well, when it comes to the lane pressure and carry as well, I feel like he'll be fine. I don't think he's going to be out pressured by the hunter, but I do feel like he probably can't brawl too much with the hunter until late game. He is a very late game god, and so for that reason, that role sticks to pretty much the bottom. For support, he's good. I mean, he has his stun off. It's not horrible. He's able to stop people from chasing with his stun because it's got a lot of range pretty much. He's able to chase someone down if necessary, finish if they're low, so there's that. The thing is even if you build him with a full Guardian build, which I do, you'll see that he's still going to get bursted pretty easy compared to if you were to pick a Guardian or like a Warrior in the support role. So that's kind of why I put it down there. That's going to be most people, is no matter how tanky you build them, they're still squishy. They're still going to get bursted down a lot more than your typical Guardians would be in that role. So that's why I put support as low as it is. The next one's probably going to be jungle, just because he's pretty fun to play in the jungle. He can play off objectives pretty easy. He can play on the other side of walls. One of the things I like doing with Agni is playing on the outside of walls and stealing camps from the enemy jungle. The only problem with jungle, and the reason it sits at the middle of the field, is because his clear and his pressure early on in the game is not good, so he's probably going to get out pressured early on. Until he has his full kit, he's really not good for ganks. He would need pretty much all 4 of his abilities to be able to finish someone off. So you're bottlenecking him until about level 5. I mean, at level 3, you can get your stuns off at least. So if you have a good solo lane, or, you know, whoever you're ganking into mid or duo lane, then maybe you can get off some early kills. But most of the time, it's not going to happen until about level 5, when you can dump off your whole kit. So jungle's fun, but you're probably going to get out pressured by any damaged assassin, and your ganking pressure isn't there until about level 5. Then it's going to go into solo and mid, which are pretty close to each other. The edge does go to mid. So we'll talk about solo first. Solo is good for Agni. Solo is good for most power mages, I feel like. Going up against a warrior as a power mage, your clear is going to be fine. Your brawl potential, maybe not so much, especially with Agni, because, like I said, his early game is not the greatest, but I don't think you're going to get out cleared or out gapped by another warrior as long as you play correctly. The good thing about Solo is he's able to come into and out of his lane pretty quickly, so he's able to rotate into the jungle to help with the camps if necessary, or to get picks off, and he's able to get over to mid lane pretty quickly the way his dash works. So I feel like he does really well in the solo lane. Especially in late game, having another full damage mage is really good to have, especially if you have a really good tank. Having that additional burst damage towards the end is really nice. It's good to drop teams off. And then the reason mid lane takes the cake is mainly because that's where he belongs, that's his home. And it's kind of the same thing as solo, except he's located right in the middle of the map, which is really nice. Like I said, he's very mobile, his dash is really long and very quick, so he's able to rotate off his mid lane over to solo or over to duo or into the jungle if necessary, which makes him really strong. He's able to get in and out of group fights pretty quickly. And I feel like he's really good and on par with some of your meta mages right now, like Vulcan and everything like that, in order to clear out mid lane. So I don't think he's ever going to get out pressured in the mid lane either. So I feel like he does really well in the mid lane for those reasons. Getting into the builds, well, I've already got the primary build that I go with on Agni built out here. This is typical what I would build in the mid lane. Pretty similar to what I would build in the jungle and on solo lane as well, with a couple minor alterations. For the solo lane, I'd probably substitute out Book of Thoth for a Warlock Staff just for the additional health, so he's a little bit healthier in that lane, just because going up against a warrior, there might be some situations where you're going to want to have a little bit more brawling potential with having a little bit higher of a health base, just in case you get picked off early on. Other than that, you could build Tainted Steel instead of Pendulum Ages, but I like to keep the cooldowns on Agni just to keep his kit a little bit more burstier and a little bit quicker on the refund. Into the jungle lane, other than these, well, I'll explain kind of the reason why I built this first. Spear of Desolation is really good. It gets you to 30% for his cooldown reductions, and then the passive is really good. It gives you refunds of 2 seconds on all your cooldown abilities if you get a killer assist, and then it refunds your ultimate to 6 seconds, which towards late game is almost an instant free meteor. So I like to have that on him, and then it also gives him a whole lot of power and penetration. This is just for lifesteal. This can be subbed out if you're not having trouble with lifesteal, but right now the meta's kind of devos onto the hunters. So hunters become a little bit of trouble if you don't have a guardian that builds lifesteal towards the end of the game, and if you're going into a mage as well that builds a lot of heavy lifesteal, like an Anubis or something like that, it's good to have. Soul Reaver is like the secret sauce for Agni. Soul Reaver is a very bursty item, gives him a lot of power. But the biggest thing is in the late game, it's going to help you clear out tanks because of the health passive. Get rid of that. Basically, once they're at higher health, you get more damage based on their maximum health, which is nice, especially with the way his abilities work. Your abilities do an additional 2% of target's maximum health as magical damage, and that scales up all the way to 2750 health. And then the final item is Spear of Magus. This helps the team as well as Agni. This gives you some power and penetration, a little bit of lifesteal. I don't worry too much about lifesteal on Agni, but this gives you a little bit of additional damage because of the passive. It gives you 7.5% increased damage against all targets that are damaged by your abilities after you mark them with it. So other than that, that's kind of the mid build. Like I said, solo's the same except for the Warlock Staff, which gives them more health. You can go Tainted if necessary for some additional early game reductions in lifesteal, so there's a little bit of anti-heal there. And then for the jungle, you could substitute out an item here, but you don't have to. I feel like the Sands of Time starter is okay for a jungle starter, but if you wanted to substitute this out, you could. You could go for a jungle item. I just like having Pendulum of Ages towards the late game, just because I feel like the other two jungle starters aren't really that good towards the late game on Agni. But if you were going to build one, I'd probably tell you to just go for the passive for the wards that go down after you're able to drop them, just so you don't have to worry about it too much, and go into something like Protector of the Jungle. But other than that, I would keep the rest of the build pretty similar. For carry, this is where things kind of get into the meme territory, but I do feel like the carry build, as long as you go into a little bit of power towards the end, works on Agni. So for carry, I go into, for the starter item, I probably build something like Death's Toll, or, I think for my video I went into Ornate Arrow, but I'm not 100% sure. But this just helps give you a little bit more attack speed and crit chance towards the end based on your gold. So Ornate Arrow, and then I would go into 2 of the rings. I only ever build 2 of the rings on Agni. It's either going to be, I'm definitely going to build the power ring, but I would not build it first. But I would definitely build it. And then it was either going to be Ring of Hecate or the Demonic. So one of those two, and those I would build one of those 2 first. But most of the time I'm going to go for Ring of Hecate on Agni, and then I'd go into something like Typhoon's Fang to for some additional lifesteal. and that also helps you with a little bit of power and penetration as well. And then for the last 2 items, I'm probably going to build something that really helps him out with his abilities, because he is very dependent on his kit, doing a lot of burst damage. So I don't want to take that away from him. So he does get the basics here. And then the last 2 items would probably be, I'd say, Rod. Probably go into Perfected Rod. This is going to give him a huge power spike and really help out with his burst damage. And then I would finish off with Obsidian, which is a very strong item right now. And this gives your first ability cast 10% magical penetration. So if you do need to enter a fight with your ultimate, it's going to help out a lot. So this would be his carry build here. And then the final is the same build I build on every single person for support, just because really only one way to build a support character right now that's right. But I mean, you could go Mimi with it and just build something crazy, but this is typically how I build a Guardian. It's either going to be Benevolence or Sentinel's Gift. On Agni, I'd probably go into Sentinel's Gift, and then I would go into Sentinel's Embrace, and then after that it's going to be your typical build. Obviously the one item everyone builds on a Guardian nowadays is going to be Gauntlet, so we would go into Gauntlet. This gives you a nice little health boost. And then after that, I would go into aura-based items. So something that's going to help your entire team, because you're already bottlenecking the team by being a mage and not a main tank. So you're going to want to help them as much as you can. So I would build things like Shoguns for additional attack speed for your hunter. I would build Sovereignty. This would help out with physical protections for your whole team. These are all giving you health boosts. So you would want to build all of these items just to help out with everyone, so they don't hate you too much for locking in someone that doesn't belong in the support lane most of the times. I like Heartward Amulet. I don't see it built much, but I feel like it helps out a lot, and I don't know why it doesn't get built as much. Going into a Heartward Amulet and then upgrading it into the Stronghold is nice, because it gives you physical protections, 15% based on your magical protections. Or it gives you magical protections based on 15% of your physical protections. So you could build another strong physical item at the end. You could build Spirit Robe if you're having trouble with someone that has crowd control, like a Fenrir or a Neith or something like that, and you're being targeted a lot. This will help with mitigations if you get targeted by a crowd control effect. That's a good item, but I would probably build something, depending on how aggressive the team is going. I would probably build an Emperor's Armor is really good. I think that's an item that's slept on, because it allows you guys to be aggressive. It allows you to dive towers if necessary, and it also helps you if they are being pretty aggressive and you need help with the towers and you're fighting under towers a lot, or if they're pressuring your phoenixes. This gives your towers additional attack speed as well, 50%. So that's a strong item as well. So something like that would be good to build, either that or Spirit Robe. So this is kind of his support build for me. A really strong build, I feel like, no matter who you build it on. The only, difference in my support builds typically is the starter. That's probably going to be, like I said, either Sentinel's Embrace or Animosity, which gives you power on basic attack gods. So I wouldn't build that unless I was building someone I was planning on doing some heavy damage with basic attacks in the end game. So anyway, that kind of sums up Agni as a whole. Hopefully this video is a lot shorter. I feel like it's going to be under the 20-minute mark, which is good. A lot shorter than the Achilles one, and hopefully they continue to get shorter and a little bit easier to explain as I go and get a little bit more proficient with it. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope this helps anyone that's trying to fully understand gods, or if you guys just enjoy kind of watching videos. If you guys have any suggestions, feel free to drop them in the comments, and if you like the video, feel free to drop a like for me. It definitely appreciate it, and it lets me know that I'm doing well. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. This has been Brad Cry.